For 11 years, The Carol Burnett Show was comedy gold. Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman created some of television's most hilarious moments. Their chemistry was electric, and their timing was impeccable. Together, they were unstoppable. But behind the laughter was a relationship more complicated than audiences ever knew. Creative tensions, ego clashes, and professional disagreements finally came to a head in a moment that shocked everyone on set. This is the untold story of the day Carol Burnett reached her breaking point and did something she never thought she'd have to do: fire her most talented co-star in the middle of rehearsal. What could make America's sweetheart fire the man who made her laugh harder than anyone else? The answer reveals the hidden pressures of creating comedy perfection. Week after week, if you love behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama, hit that subscribe button. Now let's go back to that fateful day when everything changed on The Carol Burnett Show. To understand what went wrong, we first need to appreciate what made Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman one of television's greatest comedy teams. Their partnership was magic, but even magic has its complications. When Harvey Korman joined The Carol Burnett Show in 1967, it was clear from day one that he was something special. He had impeccable timing, incredible range, and the ability to play any character from sophisticated to completely absurd. Carol and Harvey's on-screen chemistry was undeniable. They could make each other laugh genuinely during sketches, and those authentic moments of breaking character became some of the show's most beloved moments. Audiences loved watching them struggle not to crack up. Harvey was the perfect straight man, the perfect buffoon, the perfect romantic lead, whatever the sketch needed. His versatility made him invaluable to the show's success. Carol often said that Harvey could make anything funny just by how he stood there. The ensemble included Vicki Lawrence, Lyle Waggoner, and later Tim Conway, who became Harvey's primary comedy partner in many sketches. Tim's improvisational genius often left Harvey in tears of laughter. Unable to keep a straight face, Carol had enormous respect for Harvey's talent. She trusted him completely with material and often wrote sketches specifically to showcase his abilities. He was more than just a cast member, he was essential to the show's identity. The relationship went beyond performer and boss. Carol valued Harvey's input on sketches, his suggestions for improvements, and his instincts about what would work with audiences. They were true creative partners. Harvey's work on the show earned him 4 Emmy Awards. His characters became iconic, from the dentist in the Novocaine sketch to his various roles opposite Tim Conway. He was at the peak of his creative powers, but success brings its own pressures. The expectation to deliver comedy gold every single week, the long hours, the creative disagreements, all of these began to create tension. Beneath the surface of their successful partnership, as the years went on, small frustrations began to accumulate. Harvey had opinions about how sketches should be performed. Carol had her own vision for the show. These differences, initially minor, began to grow into something more serious. By the early 1970s, after several years of tremendous success, the relationship that had seemed unbreakable was showing cracks. Something was about to give. The day that Carol Burnett fired Harvey Korman on the spot didn't begin any differently from hundreds of other rehearsal days. But by the time it was over, their relationship would be forever changed. It was a typical rehearsal day at CBS Television City. The cast and crew were working through sketches for the upcoming show, running through blocking and timing, making adjustments as needed during one particular sketch rehearsal. Harvey had strong opinions about how a scene should be played. He felt that the material wasn't working as written and suggested changes to improve it. Carol, who was not only the star but also the executive producer of the show, had a different vision. She had approved the sketch and believed it would work as planned. Harvey's resistance felt like a challenge to her authority. What started as a professional disagreement about comedy quickly escalated. Voices were raised. Harvey was insistent that his way was funnier. Carol was equally insistent that her vision for the show should prevail. This wasn't the first time they had clashed over creative decisions. There had been other moments of tension, other disagreements that had been smoothed over, but the accumulation of these conflicts had been building up pressure. From Harvey's point of view, he was advocating for what would make the sketch funnier. As a performer, he knew what worked for him, and he felt his suggestions came from experience and expertise. From Carol's perspective, she was running a show that required countless creative decisions every week. She couldn't have every choice questioned or challenged, especially in front of the entire cast and crew. The argument reached a point where it was no longer about the sketch. It had become about respect, authority, and who was really in charge of the show. The atmosphere in the rehearsal room became electric, with tension, cast, and crew members watched in shock as two people they loved and respected squared off against each other. Tim Conway, Vicki Lawrence, and others stood frozen, not knowing whether to intervene or disappear. In the heat of the moment, Carol did something she had never done before and would rarely do again. She gave Harvey an ultimatum: do the sketch as planned or leave. Harvey, proud and stubborn, refused to back down. He believed he was right, and he wasn't going to compromise his professional standards. Even for Carol, that's when Carol said the words no one expected to hear. Harvey was fired, right there, in front of everyone, in the middle of rehearsal. The partnership that had created television magic was suddenly, shockingly over. The rehearsal room fell completely silent. No one could believe what they had just witnessed. Carol Burnett, known for her warmth and professionalism, had just fired Harvey Korman, the show's most valuable player. Harvey left the rehearsal immediately. Carol, shaking but resolute, told everyone to take a break. The show that had always been a place of joy and laughter had just experienced its darkest moment. The aftermath of Carol firing Harvey sent shockwaves through the production. What would happen to the show? Could their partnership survive? And more importantly, who would blink first? Production essentially stopped. The rest of that day's rehearsal was canceled. Cast and crew didn't know what to do or say. The show's future suddenly seemed uncertain. In her dressing room, Carol faced the reality of what she had done. She had fired her most talented performer, the man who had been with her from nearly the beginning, the comedian whose work she deeply admired. Harvey, for his part, was equally shaken. Despite his stubbornness during the argument, he hadn't actually believed Carol would fire him. The reality of what had happened began to sink in. Behind the scenes, phone calls were made. Producers, agents, and mutual friends tried to mediate. Everyone understood that losing Harvey Korman would fundamentally change the Carol Burnett Show. Then another. Both Carol and Harvey had time to reflect on what had happened, on their years of successful partnership, and on whether pride was worth losing something so valuable. Both began to realize that their partnership was bigger than any single disagreement. They had created too much together, meant too much to each other professionally and personally. To let it end this way, according to those close to the situation, it's unclear who reached out first. Some say Carol called Harvey, others say Harvey showed up at the studio. What matters is that both were ready to find a way forward. Their conversation was reportedly honest and emotional. Carol explained that she couldn't have her authority as producer undermined. Harvey acknowledged that he had crossed a line in how he expressed his disagreements. They came to an understanding about how creative disagreements would be handled going forward. There would be a process for Harvey to express concerns without challenging Carol's authority in front of everyone. Harvey returned to the show. The firing was walked back officially. There had been a misunderstanding that was now resolved. Production resumed, and the show went on. But something had changed. The relationship was never quite the same after that day. There was a new awareness of boundaries, a slight formality that hadn't existed before. Despite the changed dynamic, their professional respect remained. They continued to create brilliant comedy together, continued to make each other and audiences laugh. However, the incident had planted seeds that would eventually bloom into Harvey's decision to leave the show permanently in 1977. The firing day became a turning point that showed both of them their partnership had limits. The incident of Carol firing Harvey on the spot was eventually resolved, but it revealed cracks in their partnership that would ultimately lead to Harvey's departure and a new chapter for both of their careers. After the firing incident was resolved, Harvey continued on the show for several more years. The comedy remained brilliant, but those who knew them well could sense that something fundamental had shifted in their dynamic. In 1977, Harvey Korman made the decision to leave the Carol Burnett Show permanently. While he cited wanting to pursue other opportunities, insiders knew that the incident years earlier had never been fully forgotten by either party. Carol was understanding publicly, but privately devastated. Losing Harvey felt like losing a part of the show's soul. She had to accept that their partnership, while legendary, had run its natural course. The Carol Burnett Show continued for one more season without Harvey, ending in 1978. While still successful, many felt the show lost something irreplaceable when Harvey left. Harvey went on to star in his own variety show, though it was short-lived. He found success in films, voice acting, and guest appearances, but never quite recaptured the magic he had with Carol. Over the years, Carol and Harvey's relationship healed. They did occasional reunion specials together, participated in retrospectives, and spoke warmly about each other in interviews. In later interviews, both were candid about the challenges of their partnership. Carol acknowledged that her firing of Harvey, while necessary in the moment, was something she regretted having to do. Harvey, with the wisdom of hindsight, admitted he had been difficult at times, that the pressure of creating weekly comedy had made him demanding and sometimes unreasonable. Both came to understand that even the best creative partnerships involve conflict, that genius often comes with ego, and that managing both is part of creating something great, despite everything. Carol and Harvey never lost their appreciation for what they created together. They understood that their partnership, complicated as it was, had produced something special. The sketches they created together remain comedy classics. Generations continue to discover and enjoy their work, unaware of the tensions that sometimes existed behind the scenes. When Harvey Korman passed away in 2008, Carol was genuinely devastated. She spoke movingly about his talent, their partnership, and what he had meant to her career and life. Carol's tribute to Harvey after his death focused entirely on his genius, their great moments together, and the joy he brought to millions. The difficulties were acknowledged but never dwelled upon. The story of Carol firing Harvey on the spot is part of the complete picture of their relationship, a relationship that included both brilliant collaboration and human conflict, professional respect and personal frustration. Their story teaches us that great creative partnerships are rarely simple, that talented people can clash even when they deeply respect each other, and that managing ego and authority is crucial in collaborative work. Despite that day when Carol fired Harvey on the spot, their partnership endures as one of television's greatest. The moment of conflict becomes a footnote in a much larger story of comedy, brilliance, and creative collaboration. The day Carol Burnett fired Harvey Korman on the spot was a crisis that could have ended one of television's greatest partnerships. Instead, it became a moment of truth that, while painful, ultimately helped define the boundaries that allowed their collaboration to continue. Their story reminds us that even the most successful partnerships face challenges, that creative brilliance often comes with strong personalities, and that great art sometimes requires difficult conversations and hard decisions. Carol and Harvey's work together remains comedy gold, bringing laughter to new generations who discovered the Carol Burnett Show. Complicated and human as it was, created something that transcends any single moment of conflict. In the end, the firing incident became just one chapter in a much larger story of two immensely talented people who, despite their differences, created television magic that will never be forgotten. If you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes story, please like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating tales from television's golden age. Thanks for watching. And remember, even comedy legends have their dramatic moments.